want to welcome you to our quarterly seminar, sponsored by the Patientory Association, AI Developments in Healthcare. We have a very interesting panel this morning, but just a little introduction. I'm Jonathan Fuchs. I'm a board member of the Patientory Association, which is sponsoring this webinar. We are recording this, and it will ultimately be available at a later date on the Patientory platform. The Patientory Association was incorporated as a global nonprofit healthcare member organization to meet the need and facilitation of the adoption and emerging technologies in the healthcare industries, to foster interoperability of seamless health data access and transfer. Since 2018, we fostered educational content and events, most commonly our Blockchain Summit, which was launched in 2018, webinars and blogs supported by our Global Ambassador Network, championing new innovations to address interoperability use cases. Currently, the association connects healthcare industry adopters of the PTO Matrix Blockchain Network. The PTO Matrix Blockchain Network securely stores and manages health information in real time by a decentralized node, such as storage and management, facilitated by the blockchain-based token, which we call PTOI, the world's first healthcare cryptocurrency. Our membership network is currently open to those organizations looking to host or transact their data across the network securely and seamlessly with potential consumers of that information. That can be found on patientoryassociation.com. And so now I'd like to start our seminar. We have two very prominent speakers, Dr. Suhail Shogtai and Devin Tuitt. And we will have questions afterwards if you will just put them in the chat, and we will address them at the end of this program. With this, let me introduce Dr. Shogtai, who is a consultant orthopedic surgeon and medical legal examiner in London. He has fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons and Physicians in Glasgow and fellow in clinical telemedicine in Pakistan. He is currently studying and making presentations on artificial intelligence in healthcare, and he has been an author of a number of books on telemedicine and 15 published articles on telehealth, virtual home care, and AI in healthcare. He is a ambassador of the Patientory Association, and it's a delight to welcome him to our program. So Dr. Shogtai, Suhail, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. It's been a pleasure to be part of the group. Chris McFarlane has been doing a lot of effort, and I can see the journey now evolving further. So I'm glad to be part of this. I'll just share, if I may, the screen. And I hope you're able to see my screen. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you all see my screen?
It's coming up for me. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And there is no other distraction on the screen like Zoom screens and etc. You can see a clear slide. Yeah. So
yes.
This is a topic of great interest to me. I have seen practice of medicine evolving in UK around artificial intelligence in the last 3 years. Especially the last 6 months, for some reason. It was all telehealth at the time of COVID. Then that opened the door of ingress of technology, fast-track technology into health. And now artificial intelligence is basically making people like me feel, who've been in this technology for 20 years, as if you have just started. And that's a good feeling. There is so much hunger in learning and artificial intelligence. And I believe there is not just potential, there is eagerness to learn it. So I gladly share my thoughts on artificial intelligence empowered healthcare services. And this is not the exhaustive list. I will only cover some parts of the services that can be possible empowering health artificial intelligence. So allow me to take you to first slide. Artificial intelligence, I think most of people who are listening, they know that it is this branch of medical computer science where computers will think like or work like human brain. But as we've evolved, now we have a traditional AI and we have a generative AI. The generative AI is the latest evolution facet of artificial intelligence. Let's compare the two, because in healthcare, or for that sake, in every professional field, either a mixture or one dominating the other will be actually evolving that particular field. The traditional AI was based on logic and programming. You have to code, you have to put the data into the system, make rules, make patterns, and that became so good that even the 100, if you put gray in 100 shades, it'll pick up one shade which human eye cannot detect. Up to that minute level of pattern recognition it went up to. And the outcome is predictable based on what data you put in, because you made your own rules. In this kind of AI, traditional AI, there's a very high dependency on human supervision. Now, if you keep these 3 points in mind, that means it's not very autonomous, it's controlled. But let's go to generative AI. It is based like human's brain neural network. It's like a brain wave. When you start thinking, you bounce off the information there and you come up with thoughts. So it's not pattern recognition only, it's pattern generation mainly. You come up with novel ideas, new ideas, based on what information you contain. You don't have to do a lot of coding in that. It is the placement of data and pointing the software to look at that data. And like prompt engineering part is mainly the predominant part of coding in generative AI as compared to use of Python language in our traditional AI. So the generative AI is very contextual and it's very creative. You make it unique images, unique text. And the dangerous part is that the dependency on human supervision is very low. To some, it may feel good, but actually it is the critical part of the whole scenario that the regulation control on AI is now absolutely mandatory. The lower the dependency on human supervision, the more the chances are that the computers can go out of control. They become autonomous. On a funny note, there have been movies, the movie directors have captured this imagination. And you probably saw Tom Cruise's movie Mission Impossible, the latest one. And there was one before that, Megan, where a doll becomes so powerful. The doll was originally bought to protect a child, a computer doll, a robot. But that robot becomes so sensitive. It learns that every threat to the baby must be stopped. And it becomes very powerful. So that level of human computer autonomy can lead to a point where, imagine a computer being run by solar power. You can't even switch it off. All you can do is shoot it. But computer will know how to even protect yourself, hide in a place where you can't find it. So these things, a robot becoming autonomous, are dangerous. And that is where a supervision is required in form of regulation. And in Italy and other places like Russia, China, the development of artificial intelligence is on hold at the moment because the regulations are being set up. So imagine the traditional AI, like pattern recognition, like diagnosing pathology slides, radiology images, as compared to ChatGPT generating novel ideas out of the information placed there. So traditional AI and generative AI, the mixture of two is going to help the healthcare profession. At some places, one will dominate the other. So let's take a look at how healthcare is benefiting from artificial intelligence. Let's talk about diagnosis. One of the most common things we do as doctors, we have symptoms and we diagnose and then we treat. So imagine that the artificial intelligence's attribute of object detection or pattern detection is very usable in the field of image-based medical sciences. For example, radiology. What human eyes the variants of different tuberculous lesion, for example, the variants of different lung carcinoma, human eye can miss because of lack of knowledge, or because of stress, or because of poor quality of display. So those factors do not deter a computer, because to computer eye, it is electronic file. It's a pattern. So computers cannot err or mistake if there is even the minutest variation of a radiology image that is ominous. And that's a great tool to filter out possible cancer, if not definitive cancer. So if you have 100,000 X-rays to look in 1 month, you can filter out the ones which look ominous or which look sensitive closer to the cancer appearance. And that is a great use of artificial intelligence. It is not only time saving, it is improvement of quality. What humans could miss, computers cannot miss. So the eye for detail of humans can get numb due to stress, tiredness, overwork, and many other influences. Computers don't get tired. Then looking at the ECG format, like it's a great way to train doctors that you pick up the sensitive ECGs which look closer towards the cardiac infarction or myocardial infarction. The ECGs which show the heart block, which is not very clear, but could be heart block and a variant of heart block. So those patterns can be saved as information in the AI systems, and this traditional AI will pick up those patterns and will raise the alarm. This ECG does not look right. A human can miss that unless it's very clear. So all of this put together is a great tool. And imagine that when you diagnose a condition, we use 3 things basically. First of all, we use knowledge. Then we use our eye for detail. And the third thing is the experience. Okay, computers cannot replace the experience of a consultant, of a doctor. But the first 2 things, the knowledge and the eye for detail, those factors, artificial intelligence data patterns can overcome. A working memory of a doctor probably will go to 4 to 5 maximum. But as compared to computer, the working memory and the instant recall is in hundreds, thousands, and at times in millions if you come to supercomputing. So all of this is unmatchable. The power of computer is really unmatchable to any form of human capability. So let's use that in a positive way. If I go to the second point, which is predictive analysis, that is again a very interesting area. We have vital signs from patients which tell us a story. But one vital sign at a time can tell us the heart rate is going down. But if that is combined with the breathing rate, and if that is combined with a blood pressure drop, and if that is combined with it's something else like oxygen saturation, all of these becomes a complex analysis. So humans can make an error or can miss something, miss a pattern of early detection, whereas computers cannot. They will predict what is coming next. So that is a wonderful system which can annex the traditional early warning score system, which is here. Early warning score system is basically a set of vital signs measured together and patterns created. It's very limited because humans cannot read so much. There's so much variance. Whereas when it comes AI, it can become limitless and more patterns will come up. So we will become even sharper and more intelligent in picking up earlier heart blocks, earlier myocardial ischemia. So this is a very exciting area. And one example is Rothman index, where patients who get discharged from hospital to home, they can be monitored. And this is a graph which is going either up or going down and based on several parameters. So this can become even more reflective of the patient's condition. That patient, if the patient's graph is going down, patient has to be shifted back to hospital. And if the patient graph is going up, patient can stay at home. This can become more accurate by the use of AI as we can have more factors and more combinations. So the differential diagnosis based on the patient's symptoms. I mean, remember that patients are giving history, and most of the experienced clinicians, diagnose a medical condition based on history before they go to the medical records, before they go to physical examinations. So that is a very important part. And if you have help of an AI system where all the data is put together and the differential diagnosis is suggested based on something the patient has said, that's an amazing tool. And that can work as a virtual nurse, like a triage nurse, before the doctor is seeing the patient. That data can be presented. Take example of a shoulder pain patient. 40 years old, shoulder pain, no history of fall, 1 week history, patient works in some condition, some occupation where he has to raise his hand a few times up and down. So that differential diagnosis can be presented in a much more informed way, plus the data collection. So that's an amazing way to empower the artificial intelligence-based diagnosis. Now let's go to another area of combining AI with healthcare services, medical treatment. So medical treatment can be very complex. It's based on so many factors. And those factors at the moment are patient's sensitivity, patient's reactivity, the condition's severity, and other local factors. But what about if we go further one layer down and we do genome sequencing? What if we know that this patient can react to cholesterol-lowering drugs? A very common side effect of cholesterol-lowering drugs is myositis. So that can happen in a group of patients who have a hidden sensitivity to those drugs. But if we know beforehand, we can put them on the right drug. That is called as personalized treatment. So gene sequencing is a lot of data churning. And that, again, process can be assisted by artificial intelligence. Most of these things can be done without artificial intelligence. There's no strict dependency. But if we talk about moving fast, moving in a quality way, consuming less resources, and making it exciting, that is where artificial intelligence comes in. So we're not saying that if there was no artificial intelligence, we can't do a precision treatment. We can still do it. But the time lag and the effort and the process can become very expensive as compared to artificial intelligence doing all the data churning. And same way, we can leverage medical records and health data to predict what is the best form of treatment. We can make a disease pathway much better. If we know that the patient's health data has some sensitive points, you must not go into, those patients must not get beta blockers. And so we can define targeted therapies for very specific patient groups. And that also helps us early disease detection and prevention. We can prevent complications and we can prevent the drastic progression of diseases if we have the capacity to understand, analyze data fast and quick. So personalized and precision medical therapies, all very much possible through AI involvement. And I think this is a great advancement and blessing for the medical profession, I suppose. One area of extreme interest to those scientists who work in pharmacological industry is the drug discovery and drug development. In any pharmaceutical development, the data churning or the data processing is the factor that slows the whole performance. It not only slows, it sometimes halts because the cost goes too much. And the errors, human errors, are again factors which are, when considered, they can be stopping the whole process. But what if you create models of screening? You put a compound which is a possible drug, and compare that with various patterns of disease and match the data, like a special compound molecule as compared to a disease condition. So you match the codes that this disease condition has 20 variants and this compound had 40 variants, and you try and match them. So this process can be very fast. And imagine when there's stress. Why we go far? Let's look at 2020. The formation of vaccine was an urgent necessity. COVID was announced 2020 March, officially in UK, and the vaccine was available by August. That process could have been even faster had there been more AI involvement in the process. Less people could have died. So virtual screening interactions, I believe, is one strong area where artificial intelligence comes in. And of course, we can optimize the drug design because that requires, again, going through a lot of sequences. We can identify new disease pathways. We can enhance the preclinical testing. That is where we can create models of disease. We can create models of molecules, and then we can find out the toxicity. Basically, the research and development for pharmaceutical industry is really blessed by artificial intelligence. And this is a huge topic. I can't sum it up in one slide, but I just want to give you a little flavor of that. Now, I think you probably have already practicing that. Most of you would have experienced the chatbots, which work as artificial or intelligence nurses or the person before the doctor. So you can do basically a virtual triage. And the benefit of that is that the doctor's time is more efficiently used. The same questions again and again, the doctor doesn't have to ask. He will get the answers through a chatbot, the artificial intelligence chatbot. And then those chatbots can work 24/7 and giving patients information that if you are coughing with blood, what to do. If the blood is too much, what to do. If the blood color is green, what to do. If it's red, what to do. All these questions, patients don't have to wait for someone to pick up the phone and answer. They can be all available through intelligent, generative chatbots because they can talk. They work like brain neural networks. They can talk. And if there is an artificial intelligence, traditional type, that can also be sufficient. But we are heading from traditional artificial intelligence to generative artificial intelligence like ChatGPT for this patient support lines. Of course, we collect data in a more methodical way. It's time-saving, and that all is very cost-efficient. So the variables, I mean, that's another area where virtual home care, for example, you monitor patients at home, you have continuous data. Medical profession is blessed by data, and artificial intelligence survives on data, that thrives on data. So we have a great combination. Continuous health monitoring, you put an ECG on the patient's chest, and the data is rolling into an artificial intelligence system. And so many patterns, so many diseases can be studied, that if this pattern happened, what was the patient's symptom? That the patient had sudden dizziness, and you look at the pattern at that time. So that an unknown variant of ECG can be picked up and can be studied over and over again. So that allows the predictive analysis of early intervention, better quality of healthcare, especially for elderly. And then, of course, the management, this will enhance the lifestyle management. Again, the disease surveillance is much sharper. I remember the times we used to put cassettes of heart sounds, and then we used to listen to all those cassettes of heart sounds, heart beating over 24 hours, the Holter monitoring. But now the time has gone fast. I mean, we only require 5 minutes of heart sounds, and from that 5 minutes of heart sounds, we can reduce so much variance. And that is the quality of AI and the attribute of AI. So what else we can manage? Hospital operations. I think you all know that there are companies who are listening to the doctor-patient conversation and converting that into patient summaries, using and tagging them with the keywords. So you can search the particular patient record, like if a patient said that I had migraine with flashing in front of my eyes. These two tag words, you can pick up patients from the hospital records. Let's say 20,000 patients, you can pick up 400 patients who complained flashing in front of their eyes along with dizziness, and the ones who had flashing without dizziness. So this statistical difference can be, it doesn't require humans anymore. The doctor-patient conversation can be synthesized and can be heard and transformed into generative AI-based data summaries. And of course, we can judge hospital bed management. We can judge the patterns that in March, always every year, what has been the pattern? There are more seasonal diseases, and then we can link those incidental and coincidental findings to certain definitive patterns. We can reduce the waiting times of the hospital outpatient by judging which consultant sees the patients quicker, what kind of patients are seen quicker, and what staff members are more efficient than the others. So that is, again, a performance challenge, and artificial intelligence can be a neutral judge without any bias to compute all the data. Optimal resource management, like what equipment has been used very little over the years, and what has been used efficiently and very fine management of that can be again put in the data, where the data can give results, again, unbiased results. And of course, all of this will enhance the workflow quality and it'll increase the capacity. The same staff can work more efficiently with less cost. So the last slide. Well, I mean, this is all very, very exciting. What AI can do is very exciting, but at the same time, remember, I mentioned in the beginning that the generative AI can become very serious matter, especially if you go to adaptive learning algorithms. When computer solves problem without consulting humans, computer solves problems by looking at the previous examples, the data it has, and doesn't require anyone. So computer improves itself. That's called the adaptive algorithms based generative AI. That is again a very, very supercomputing thing. Once we reach that stage in a common in the common man hand, this is going to be a stage where we've got to be very careful. And of course, the patient data privacy is important. Whether it's AI, whether it's no AI, this remains a prime most concern. We should not be using ChatGPT. We should not be putting patients' data in the ChatGPT because at some stage it can be stored. If you want to put a case example, you can eliminate the patient data or maybe decode that patient data. To eliminate bias is very important. The bias based on socioeconomic groups, bias based on gender, bias based on regional areas, and ethnicity. That is yet to be eliminated. AI can be as good as the data fed to it. So that is a challenge. It must be explainable. A doctor must have a logic to explain it to the patient. That is the trust building exercise. If doctor cannot explain how ChatGPT or AI generative system reach there, the trust building between doctor and the patient cannot happen because doctor cannot explain that to the patient. And that is why the over-reliance has to be avoided. The cerebral stunting is one effect. When everything is generative AI, we got to start thinking ourselves and then take help if need be. And of course, we need to make sure that the insurance companies are looking for it. If you put ChatGPT or any other generative AI as your tool for diagnosis, that doesn't mean that you are safe. You are in fact more liable for accountability of errors. So this is very exciting, but that is the question I really want to propose to you. I'm excited to talk about this. This is a big topic, but I'm very conscious of the time. So I give it back to Jonathan to take it further. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Suhail. Thank you. It was a very comprehensive introduction to a very complicated and complex but exciting topic. Our next speaker is Devin Tuitt. Devin has a degree in, has a degree in Management Information Systems from Oakwood University. He's been a technologist for many years in a number of different enterprises, and in a variety of roles, including full stack engineer, IT director, the board member, consultant, most recently a customer engineer at Google Cloud. In the past, he has worked on the EMR space and developed a specialized EMR for oncology clinics before EMRs became mainstream, which in and of itself is a major accomplishment. And he is about to launch a soon-to-be-announced healthcare startup, and we wish him luck with that. But at the moment, he's our speaker and special advisor to the healthcare technology at the UP Foundation. So, Devin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Let me get set up here. Let me see. And give me 1 second. Tell me if I'm coming through once I do this share. How's it looking?
Got it.
Awesome. Well, it's really good to be here. I want to say thank you to a few people. Thank you to the Patientory Association for the invite to present today. I want to say thank you to a good friend of mine, Greg Edwards. He may be listening in right now. He helped me with my presentation. He's really, really good at putting presentations together. And I also want to say thank you to to an individual, Bertalan Mesco. He's a medical futurist, and I found a lot of information on his site just to share with you all. And so if you're ever looking to get updated information, check out the medical futurist. It's an awesome resource. Today, I want to talk about just a few things. I can't cover everything, but what I want to talk about is I just want to do a brief survey of the AI landscape in healthcare. And then I also want to do, to briefly explore some of the ethical issues that could hinder or accelerate, broad AI adoption in healthcare. And last but not least, I think probably the most important thing is I want to celebrate, the things that are happening in this space. I want to celebrate the possibilities, because that's how we drive innovation. The more we dig and investigate, the more we share information, the more we talk amongst ourselves, the possibilities are endless, and the impact on the human race is going to be profound. So to start, there are a lot of important dates in history, and I recognize that today there's probably a global audience. A lot of these dates come from American history. Some of them don't. But there are a plethora of significant dates in our shared human history, and each date being more or less significant to a specific subset of humanity. The dates on the screen are no different. While we might all agree that the date of the first successful human heart transplant was a milestone in human achievement, we might disagree about the importance of Star Trek's premiere in 1966. But something happened on November 30th, 2022, that might have gone unnoticed by vast segments of the world's inhabitants, but it would still have a far-reaching, lasting impact on the quality and direction of their lives. So what happened on November 30th, 2022? This guy happened. Sam Altman. He released OpenAI, or he's the CEO of OpenAI, and he released ChatGPT, and it was the signal for the AI arms race, because everybody started talking about AI. Everybody. I mean, grandmas and grandpas and it doesn't matter. Everybody started talking about AI. So when he released it into the wild, it gave humans a chance to interact with machines in ways they had been dreaming about since these guys. So we've all been wanting to figure out, how do we talk to machines? And if I'm not a programmer, if I'm not a data scientist, and ChatGPT and tools like that, these large language models allow us to do that, to have conversations with the machines. And we've been wanting to do that since the machines came into being. Anybody who follows Star Trek, you would hear the officer saying "computer," and the computer would respond in a lifelike tone. And even up to Steven Spielberg's artificial intelligence, AI, we saw a computer embody the lifestyle of a child. And so we've all been wanting to do this forever. Now, we might think, it might seem that when you listen to the news, that AI is a brand new phenomenon, but it isn't. It's been around for a very long time, in fact, since the 1940s. And it's been in healthcare for a very long time also. Healthcare and AI met for the first time in the 1970s. And back then it was just used in simple biomedical problems. In the 1980s, it started to be used in more clinical settings with the introduction of artificial networks and artificial neural networks and Bayesian networks. It's been used to diagnose and treat disease for at least the last 50 years. But what about today? What's happening today? If you look at and if you survey healthcare executives, you'll see that 90% of hospitals have an AI strategy, and that's up 37% in 2019. Of those, 41% of the hospitals are in the planning stage of implementing some type of AI project. 25% of them are in the early implementation stage, and 85% of executives have some type of AI strategy. So healthcare and AI have embraced for a very long time, and there's so much going on that's hidden behind the scenes. In fact, here in the States, you'll see that the FDA has been super busy in approving tons of different AI based algorithms. In 2014, you had one algorithm that had been approved by the FDA, and that was the AliveCore algorithm. But by 2019, it had accelerated beyond that. I think there were like 23 algorithms that had been approved by the FDA for actual usage in the clinical setting. This information I found on the Medical Futurist site, and between 2010 and 2020, 64 AI-based algorithms had been approved by the FDA. And it covers a diverse array, a diverse cross-section of fields: cardiology, psychiatry, endocrinology, radiology, geriatrics, orthopedics, emergency medicine, ophthalmology, pathology, and oncology. So AI is touching a broad cross-section of fields in healthcare. And we should be excited about that, because it shows that the uptick and the uptake by practitioners has become really, really serious. And that should give us excitement, because as we introduce these technologies into the space, so much more is going to be done, and the acceleration rate is going to increase in ways that we can't even imagine right now. I want to show you a video just to kind of give you some insight as to what's actually happening in the field. So let's take a look. And
AI a little bit, it gets a bad rap sometimes. This is where it can come in super handy, like brain surgery. Tonight we are going to be taking a look at some brilliant new technology that can kill more cancerous tumor in just 3 minutes compared to 3 weeks with normal. It means thousands of people can get treatments much sooner than ever, which is crucial. Avoid brain surgery, point stepping. NBC's Dr. Akshay Saha is this program. He is going into the operating room to show the surgery as it happens. So some of this might be foolish. 56 years old, George Colosso is living the American dream. Successful career in marketing, a happy marriage, and a sweet black lab named Charlotte. But 1 year ago, his life changed forever. He woke up one morning and he had lost feeling in the left side of your body. It was scary because I did not understand what was going on. They rushed to the hospital, and after a few tests, we learned that there were 3 tumors. There was one large tumor in the back that was about the size of it, and there were 2 other smaller tumors. Those were critical to the operating. NYU Langone Hospital, Dan Ornder, they had glioblastoma, the most deadly form of brain cancer. The average survival just 8 months. More of this. It took 4 long weeks before George was so treated. They waited for the tumor's genetic test to come back. Every mother just pocket up with every 4 weeks for example. The way it was a glioblastoma tumor. It's not just 14 months. Was not enough for frustrated. Watching patients go through the same thing. Ornder has been working on a solution. It really is the clinicians and patients to but now, using groundbreaking artificial intelligence, connected to the box for deep glioma that can predict the genetics of the tumor in less than 3 minutes, a process that can take up to 6 weeks. One recent study found that deep glioma was 93% accurate compared to the usual method. Here at NYU Langone Health, we're about to head into a real-life brain surgery and see how they're using AI to help get patients a diagnosis faster. Also, the plan for this operation is to take a small portion of this abnormality, image that and use the artificial intelligence to predict the genetic. That was a see. That's true. That is the way now we're going to run deeply on to forecast the mutations that underlie the tumor. This genetic forecast that the AI has created that gives us a strong indication that what we're looking at here is genetically similar to glioblastoma. Dr. Schneeber, you're a pathologist here. How big of a deal is this? It's an incredible advance that we have molecular diagnosis in 3 minutes instead of 3 weeks. Further research is needed, but the hope is that this technology can help patients like George start treatment earlier before the tumor has a chance to grow bigger. I would say time is survival and time is quality of life. But for George, living with cancer, every moment precious. This disease is tough. And on the other hand, your spirit is so good. My spirit's here, and I'm going to be okay. No matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And Dr. Chase Howard joins us now. Dr. Seaman. Okay, so first off, you heard him say he had 8 months to live. He was told he had 8 months to live. And then you heard that 4 weeks were waiting for results to come back. And then a little later, in the surgery room, they said that it only took 3 weeks to get results. But this could do it in 3 minutes. Are they talking about the same thing here? Yeah, they're talking about the same thing, and it's a little confusing. So the average survival time for glioblastoma, the most deadly and most common form of brain cancer, is just 8 months, Scotty. And the problem is a lot of the time you're waiting to get mutations back because those mutations can tell you how the tumor's going to behave, and then you need those mutations to get the final treatment plan. And so for a tumor that has a survival average of 8 months, you're spending a month right there just waiting to get that full treatment plan. I mean, that's not ideal. And so what these researchers have developed is a way to get those to just 3 minutes using artificial intelligence with 93% accuracy compared to the usual. So right there in the surgery room, they have their results. And that seems like all of a sudden, I mean, is this a game changer? It could be, and here's the coolest part, the clinical trial aspects, because one of the biggest problems with brain surgery is this thing called the blood-brain barrier. So our body has this barrier to protect the brain from things, harmful things in the blood that make it away from the brain. And because of that, it can be hard to give treatments in the blood because you don't know if they're going to reach the brain. So if you know right then and there in surgery what mutations you have, you can give something to the brain right then in the operating room. That's something that we really haven't seen before, and that's what all the doctors are excited about. Well, and does this just apply to brains and brain surgery? Is this something that we could see with cancers everywhere? And AI.
Wow. It's amazing to think about the possibilities when we look at that, just to see, how far we have come in making, advanced diagnoses. And so the future is bright and really, really exciting. This next slide is a hodgepodge, so I wanted you to meet the movers, the shakers, and the status quo breakers, the companies that are doing really big things in the AI space right now in terms of healthcare. We can't talk about all of them. Time would not permit for us to actually dive in. So I just picked at random. I picked 5 of them that I wanted to kind of highlight, and just to go through and give you a quick survey of what they're doing right now. So we're going to focus on 5. We're going to focus on Google Health. We're going to focus on Babylon. We're going to focus on Augmetics and just a few others. So let's start with Google Health. Google Health and Google DeepMind, their credo is to build products supporting care teams and improving patient outcomes. That's a big goal to be able to do that. And so, back in 2019, DeepMind merged with Google Health to actually satisfy this particular goal. And they've been using AI. Google is an AI first company. And they've been using AI to do a lot of different things, some of which is to improve breast cancer screening and to predict patient outcomes, and even to avert blindness. That's a really cool thing that they're doing. So Google AI they developed a diabetic retinopathy screening solution, and it's actually been published in JAMA. It's been, I think it's being used in Europe and India and a few other countries, and I think they've started doing trials in the United States. But the AI was able to review more than 100,000 de-identified retinal scans. You know, just thinking about the sheer number of scans, and you know, and the ability of the AI to actually identify patterns and make sure those patterns match up and identify them across a broad cross-section of scans. That's a tremendous feat. It would take an army of people to do what this AI could do in a matter of minutes, and even so with a higher degree of accuracy. And so that's what Google Health is doing. It's doing its best to make sure that they use technology to actually enable or enhance patient outcomes. Next on the list, we've got a company called Augmetics. And Augmetics is an AI-assisted note generation company. You know, when I was in the healthcare space years ago, working with oncologists, you recognize how important the clinical note is to every interaction, patient treatment, patient billing. Every interaction centers around the note. If you don't get the notes right, you can't do treatment plan. If you don't get the notes right, you can't submit bills to the payers. So you have to have all of those things right. But notes take a long time. You know, either the transcription of notes, the recording of notes, and if you're focusing a lot on notes, it's really hard to focus on patient interaction if you're just thinking about notes. And so Augmetics is tackling, you know, physician burnout from the perspective of helping with note generation. And they've got a note builder platform that uses automated speech recognition, and it's powered by Google Cloud to transcribe the conversation between clinicians and patients. It applies natural language processing, large language models, and structured data models supported by medical documentation specialists to create premium quality medical notes. And it also is plugged in directly to the EHR. So tools like this are impacting the quality of life on the patient side by impacting the quality of life on the physician side. Because you don't want a tired physician. You don't want a physician who's gotten exhausted by just the minutia of taking notes and going through those daily things. Another company on the list is a company called Cloudmetics. And Cloudmetics is a Silicon Valley-based startup, and they're using AI to improve patient and financial outcomes. And that's really critical. Being able to improve, to address the entire spectrum of patient care is really important. And so what this company does is it uses natural language processing and deep learning to analyze data from EMRs. And the data is used to generate clinical insights for healthcare professionals. So Cloudmetics assists doctors and patients to make data-driven decisions. So if you think about a patient who may be in the emergency room and you're trying to understand, should I discharge them? Should I keep them in for longer? Cloudmetics will help do that because it'll help to narrow down, you know, the spectrum of things that might go wrong with a particular patient. The company's solution has been applied in several areas of medicine, including congestive heart failure, liver cancer, ALS, renal failure, and orthopedic surgery. So it's addressing, you know, the continuum of care and really focusing, you know, you can focus and be concerned about the patient and patient care, whether they're in the hospital or they're with the primary care physician, but you've got to also look at financial impact in order to address the entire continuum of care. Cordy is a company that it's based in Denmark, actually, and they're an AI-powered co-pilot for emergency medicine staffers. And so what Cordy does is Cordy listens in to patient interviews and analyzes the caller's voice and background noises and takes insight from historical data and artificial neural networks. So Cordy is analyzing, to see like if there's an emergency situation, they're analyzing the voice to see, is this something that needs to be referred, immediately to a higher care provider because it may be a very dangerous situation. So they're running the entire spectrum of care and helping clinicians or helping care providers make decisions a whole lot faster. A study in Denmark showed that Cordy performed better than emergency medical dispatchers in identifying cardiac arrest in emergency phone calls. So when you can do voice analysis and when you can take the clinical history and you can put those together to make better decisions, you're dramatically improving the patient outcome. There's another company, the last company I wanted to look at is called Babylon. And Babylon is a UK-based company, and it does remote consultation services. And so that's, I think that they've been deployed in countries in Africa, and they use AI to take patients who don't have access to clinicians to actually help make empowered decisions for those patients. Let's see, the company has a free smartphone app that uses AI to ask users about their complaints, and it matches them with relevant physicians 24/7 via video or voice call. So that's Babylon. Now, this is an interesting company, but this is also a company that I want to segue with, because Babylon is actually not doing as well as it wanted to. So yesterday I was reading the news, and just yesterday I saw this article in Forbes that said, digital health company Babylon shutters US business and lays off employees. And the reason I kept it in, I kept it in because it's critical for us to recognize that AI is not a panacea. It can address a lot of different things, but it doesn't address everything. And we have to be cautious, because I think sometimes when a new technology or an emerging technology hits the scene, we jump on it with such fervor, and we think that it's here to save the day in every aspect of our lives. But we have to recognize that there's more to life than just AI. And so this is critical for us as we move forward, as we think about our AI strategies, as we evaluate how we're going to use this tool, because it is a tool that is going to be transformative. It already is transformative, but it has to be added on to a continuum of things that says we understand the finances, we understand the areas where it can't be depended on completely. Even now, when you think about tools like ChatGPT and these large language models, we've all heard that these things, can score really high on tests that clinicians, use for medical school, but they also hallucinate. So there's a way to go. There's a long way for us to go before we rely on these tools completely. But nevertheless, the impact of these tools has been demonstrated and is being demonstrated on a daily basis. I want to show you another video of what's happening in this space before I segue into my last section.
Since December, on which high flow air, and because of that, I can't sustain myself at all. A dedicated team of
Devin, can you increase the sound from your side? It's not coming through well.
Okay.
Sensors and cameras track people's every move in this smart intensive care unit, from vital signs to facial expressions and everything in between.
Every place in this little sense is something. Is this enough light? Is this enough noise? Are you okay? You know, are you moving enough? Are you in your bed? Are you out of the bed?
Michael
Uh-oh,
Peters has
sorry.
been awaiting a lung transplant at the University of Florida Health Center since the team of doctors and nurses attend to him day and night. But that's not all. Sensors and cameras track Dieter's every move in this smart intensive care unit, from vital signs to facial expressions and everything in between.
Every place in this room will sense it's something about you. Is this enough light? Is this enough noise? Are you okay? You know, are you moving enough? Are you in your bed? Are you out of the bed? I think that's the future of how we will design hospitals.
More than 350 gigabytes of information per patient goes into a central computer, where artificial intelligence then processes the data. So we could look at the patient and go, they're moving a lot. There's
Yes.
something going on there, or their face has a certain grimace to it that
Absolutely.
they normally don't have.
Absolutely.
Is it possible that it could tell you before I even know that I'm having problems?
Yes, 100%. We will be able to decipher complex features, complex emotions like agitation or hunger.
Funded by the National Institutes of Health, the high-tech experiment enters its third year. Researchers are still teaching the technology what certain actions like sitting and standing might indicate. The hope that AI will soon be able to provide real-time healthcare recommendations. Nurses, doctors, we spend a considerable amount of time paperwork,
Yes.
translating the data we get.
You will actually have a representation of the data in a way that you as a human can just understand and action.
But will this new technology replace the need for humans in the hospital altogether?
They are very simplistic models compared to what our brains are doing. And I don't think that we should be worried about humans being replaced anytime soon.
That this technology does take big burden off the physicians and nurses and provide them time to actually engage what we are here for, taking care of the patients.
A new holistic approach to healthcare where humans and computers work hand in hand. Dr. John Torres, NBC News, Gainesville, Florida. Michael Dieter has been awaiting a lung transplant at the University of Florida Health Center.
So this is an amazing thing to think about, all the ways that AI is being used in the hospitals right now as we speak, and the ability to evaluate patients and to evaluate patient, the movement that they make, that a patient makes. You can do voice analysis, you can do stress analysis. There's so many data points that are being ingested right now and that are being correlated by AI to come up with, novel insights into how is a patient faring. And then you can correlate that with the time of day, with the weather, with there's so many different ways that you can ingest data and actually run the analysis to say, this is what it's going to take to get a patient back to optimal health. So the sky is the limit, and the outlook is very bright. But my last section is talking about ethics and AI. And so, because if you stop and you consider it for a moment, but when you looked at that video, you saw that it was completely immersive in that the patient was being monitored from every aspect of their lives. And we think a lot about the intrusiveness of AI and the intrusiveness of the data that's being collected. And so as we move forward with the advancement of AI, as we move forward with all the brand new discovery, this is one of the things that we have to be mindful of, because AI doesn't exist in a vacuum. It comes from somewhere, and it comes from our own societal constructs. And so all of these things are very critical in terms of, and we have to consider them so that as we build these tools, we build them in an ethical fashion. So very quickly, the first thing that we want to look at is informed consent to use. So everybody in healthcare knows about the informed consent procedure, but when you take AI that, right, that has to be addressed because that's going to change. There's so much in AI that's kind of black box. You don't know what's going on. Many of the companies don't understand how their own algorithms are being used. And so how can you inform a patient when you don't really know what the algorithm is doing that you've created? And so to think about the informed consent procedure is going to be really, really important for us to address as we move forward. You think about the idea of chatbots. Chatbots will generate user agreements when you sign up. When you go and you sign up to use ChatGPT or Bard or any of these tools, they've got a whole user agreement behind the scene that most people, we've been trained now to just click on the agreement. There is rarely anyone who sits down and reads the entire agreement that big tech companies are putting forward. And so you don't know if you're signing your life away, you're signing away the rights to your data for forever and ever. And so informed consent in the healthcare realm is going to either have to be addressed more strongly or it's going to be changed radically. So informed consent, we really have to think about it. Another area that we've got to think about is safety and transparency. And this is an incredibly complex issue because once again, if you are starting to rely on information from a computer program, who's liable if it gives you the wrong information? There was a report that said, or example where IBM Watson for oncology was giving unsafe and incorrect recommendations for cancer treatments. So is it who's liable at that point in time? And if someone is seriously injured because an AI gives you the wrong information, what happens next? So safety is really an area that needs to be thought about as we forge ahead and charge into uncharted territory when it comes to AI. Another area that we need to think about is algorithmic fairness and biases. And if you think about this, this is really critical because you have marginalized groups in society, and if the AI is not trained to understand, those separate groups, whether you divide them via race or you divide them on a socioeconomic basis, doesn't matter what the division is. If it exists, then the AI needs to understand it because at some point in time, AI may be used to grant access to novel treatments, or it may be used to deny access to novel treatments based on its understanding of the importance of treatment for a particular group of people. And so understanding and programming these tools to be fair and unbiased is going to take a lot of work. And I don't know if that's actually going to be possible because there's always bias in everything that we do. So maybe we aren't able to eliminate it completely, but we have to work very hard and very diligently to be able to get past most of the bias and then be able to make decisions outside of the AI. I don't think we can necessarily abdicate all of our decision-making power to an AI just because it makes decisions faster. We've got to be able to understand the context and override it at some point in time. So this is really going to be a critical thing that we need to address. We need to think about in order to create the best healthcare systems across the world. Last but not least is data privacy. We've entered an era now where data privacy is, we think about it, we crave it, we want it, but sometimes I feel like we've just kind of given up on it because, in order to train AI, you need data and you need large amounts of data. And the only way that you get those large amounts of data for whatever field that you're actually in is, by the participants. And so in healthcare healthcare data comes from patients and patients' families. And so how much information are you willing to give away in order to train these systems to give them access and to help them make better decisions? They will never be able to make good decisions or better decisions if they don't have data. So it's a catch-22 situation. And we're still early stage. You know, the ability of large language models to do the things that they do and whatever is going to come next, because there is going to be a next generation of AI because scientists are working diligently on that. What is it going to take and what are they going to need? And so thinking about data privacy is really, really a critical thing, you know, and just the ethics of behind, you know, training and preparing AI to take its place in the world. So with that, I want to show you one more video because, again, I told you that the last thing I wanted to do was celebrate our advances. And I think this video is truly celebratory in terms of what AI can do.
The next day was July 2020, and I was just hanging out by the pool, and I went to dive into the pool. So like I dove in aggressively as usual, and then I just blacked out. Next thing you know, there was a helicopter on the front lawn, and you know, the next day I couldn't even move. Then October 2021, I met Chad, and they approached me about joining the study.
When we met Keith for the first time, he was not even able to lift his arms off of his wheelchair, and he was not able to feel anything in his arm and hands either. After Keith was enrolled into the study, we performed functional MRI, and this allowed us to view the motor and sensory areas of Keith's brain, and it allowed us to really pinpoint where we needed to implant both the motor and sensory electrodes.
After opening the skull and opening the cover of the brain, we then got out a stimulator. We had a pretty good idea where the hand areas were going to be, and we stimulated them directly.
You feel the thumb? It's in the thumb? Yeah, you feel it.
So I placed it right over one area, and he said, I feel my thumb. I said, what part of your thumb? He said, my thumb tip, the inside of my thumb tip. And I said, we found it. At that point, we brought in the actual device, mounted it onto the skull, and then used these wires to gently lay them without damaging them, and place them precisely in those three areas that felt the fingers, as well as the two areas where we knew that his hand motor function was.
So Keith's brain is literally connected to a computer. There are signals from his motor area responsible for movement going to the computer, and signals from the computer are going back to different stimulation points in his body, brain, and spinal cord. And the goal is to restore movement and the sense of touch in a lasting way.
But I like to see an actual person, a family member, touch you and feel them. It was too cool.
Oh man, I stopped it too soon. That's good enough. That is my presentation for today, and I apologize for ending that video a little bit too soon. But you see the possibilities. We see that there is so much that is available to us right now, and I think the takeaway is this: the future is only impacted by our imagination, by the limits of our imagination. We need to be in imagination mode, and even if we're not ready to launch an AI project, there are things that we can do as medical professionals to get a house in order. Because again, data is going to be the critical thing. Data is where is the meat and potatoes of anything dealing with AI. And so data governance is really, really critical. you know, and just being able to make sure that you understand where your data is coming from, who owns it, and who has access to it. These things are really going to be important as we move forward. I don't know what the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, but I guarantee you that in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to be radically different from where we are right now. And we get to be a part of that. And that's part of the awesomeness of where we are in history, that we get to be a part of the future. And remember, the future is now. So thank you so much for allowing me to present today. I'll turn it back over to Jonathan.
Thank you, Devon. That was quite comprehensive. We do have one question, which is, can we have email IDs for the speakers? Krista, can you arrange for that, please? And we don't have any questions, but I do have one question for you, Devon, and possibly Dr. Suhail, if he hasn't had to run. Okay, and the only thing I didn't hear through any of this was the prospect of regulation and regulatory activity. I know in the United States, many of the technology companies have not been negative towards regulatory and have tried to meet with the authorities to try to suss out what that might be, but I haven't heard anything as to what that would be and how extensive it would be, and what do you, Devon, perhaps you might want to be able to comment on that.
You know, so I have to admit, I did not dive into the regulatory aspects of it, but if I just take a stab at it, I think right now we're still so early stage. So let's say it this way, even though AI has been around for 50 plus years, it's been around for a long time. It's been kind of in the confines of the research institutes. So if you think about Google and all the parts that it's played in actually bringing AI to the forefront, a lot of this was done in research efforts. A lot of Google's, moonshots, it's all been research. And it's been implemented, a little bit at a time in terms of the technology, in terms of, the Google products. But it was still behind the scenes. And now all of a sudden it's come out, with when Sam Altman released ChatGPT, it became front and center and it gained the attention of everybody. And now people are actually thinking about it because the masses are able to interact with it in ways that they could not before. Before, you had to be a data scientist, you had to be a data engineer to think about AI. You saw the uses of it. Maybe you had your smartphone and you were excited about a new feature in your smartphone, but you weren't interacting with it in a level of from the perspective of actually creating something. Now, everybody's in create mode, and everybody's been given the power of the creator to do things with it. And so now that people are thinking about it from a brand new perspective, a brand new position, I think that regulators are sitting up and taking notice, but it's still really early stage. They haven't had a chance to dive in to see what the impact is going to be. We do see things like deep fakes that are coming out, and so when you think about how deep fakes have the power to influence our political spectrums, impact society from ways that couldn't do it before, regulators are going to start thinking about that now and trying to figure out ways of staving that off. But it's almost like this explosion went off and it caught everybody off guard, and people weren't ready for it. And now they have to sit up and pay attention. And I think that's the stage that we're at right now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Jonathan, can I say
Sure.
This wonderful question, regulation. I mean, I have a slightly different view from the other speaker. The regulations, if they come too soon, they will snap the innovation. I agree that we have to have regulations in place, in particular for generative AI, where the computer grants or aspires for autonomy, because it generates data from the available information. that is where the regulation is more required. But traditional AI, where we define the set of rules, there is already regulation in place. Computers will not work beyond the set of regulations we deploy at the very creation of the chatbots or the software. So generating AI, yes, but at the same time, Jonathan and all the speakers and the people listening, please remember, every evolution has a cost. It's the balance. We will lose something, we will suffer something, but we will gain enormous. If the balance is towards gaining more than little, I think enormous evolution is not good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, there are no questions from the chat, and I want to thank Devin and Suhail for a very comprehensive introduction. That may be an oxymoron, comprehensive introduction, but introduction to artificial intelligence in healthcare. We have these webinars every quarter, and as I said earlier, the recording of this webinar will be available on the Patientory Association website shortly after this presentation. So with that, I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you, Krista, and to the Patientory Association for sponsoring this, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next webinar in a few months. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Okay, thank you.